This is episode 23 with Rob Dial.
Welcome to Men of Abundance, the podcast for those looking to level up their lives by hanging out with some of the greatest leaders and established professionals in our community, living a life of integrity, honor, and the abundance mentality. Prepare to pay it forward with your host, former Army medic turned lifestyle entrepreneur, Wally Carmichael.
Hey, Men of Abundance. Today we are talking with another awesome influencer and abundant leader within our community, Rob Dial. And before we get into that, again, I want to share with you how excited I am at the time that you're listening to this podcast. It is Friday, and I am on the Big Island with my family. And if you care to follow what it is that we're doing over here on the Big Island, then go to my Facebook page and watch our live video feed, or you can watch the live video feed on a playback at menofabundance.com blog, because my Facebook live video automatically posts to my blog at menofabundance.com. And if you're also on Instagram or Snapchat, I will also be recording a storyline as we go through our day and through our activities while we're on the Big Island, so you can follow us over there as well. You can follow me on Instagram at Wally_Carmichael, that's CARMICHAEL, and on Snapchat at Wally Carmichael. And one last thing before I introduce you to Rob. I want to hear what abundant things you're doing in your family, your community, or whatever it is that you're doing in life. I know you're out there doing very abundant things, and I want to hear everything that you're doing. I would love to have this conversation with you on our private Facebook community. That just seems to be the best place to have a conversation so that everybody can get engaged and get involved. And you can go to the show notes of this show at menofabundance.com/023. Click on the link that says join the community or get involved in the conversation. There's a link there that you can click on that will take you directly to the Facebook community, and all you have to do is click on the green button and I will give you access. Or if you're already on Facebook, just search on Facebook, Men of Abundance Free Community. Do the same thing, click on the green button and I'll give you access, and we can start the conversation there. Share anything that you're doing in your community, anything you're doing that's of abundance mindset, to show others how easy it is to live an abundant lifestyle. Our guest today, Rob Dial, started in sales at the young age of 19. He was promoted to run a franchise with the company at 21 and grew it to a multi-million-dollar business. He broke almost every record for a new office in the company's 60-year history. Rob has since moved on to do consulting for Fortune 500 companies on their workforce and training and how they can improve both. At the age of 23, Rob started his second seven-figure business. And currently, Rob is the podcast host and runs MWF Motivation Podcast, one of the fastest growing podcasts on iTunes. It hit number 1 in 6 categories on a new and noteworthy, including self-help and business. I really enjoyed this conversation with Rob, and it kind of took me back to my childhood because both of our childhoods were very similar. And of course, today we are very like-minded. Rob, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Man, it's about time. It's been a while. We've been talking about getting you on the show for quite a while, and every time it seems like every time I talk to somebody else, I was just talking to a guy 2 days ago, and he was talking about something else entirely. We were talking business and whatnot, and he's like, "Hey, by the way, is it okay if I friend you on Facebook?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I love communicating with like-minded people." And as soon as he jumps on, he's like, "Oh, you know Rob Dial?" I said, "Yeah, as a matter of fact,
really?
He's going to be on the show next week." And so we have the same circles. All of us that are moving and grooving, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny how small the world is once you start getting into very motivated, positive entrepreneurs and stuff.
And it's an amazing world.
I completely agree. I love everyone I get the chance to talk to, that's for sure.
Before we got started with the show here, I talked a little bit about you, mostly good, from what I know about you. Yeah, absolutely. It was all good, man. It was all good. But I want to hear a little bit more from you and get a little bit more personal in what you're doing and kind of work up to what we're going to be talking about today.
Okay. So a little bit about me. I had a little bit of a rough childhood. Not the most... not the childhood every kid would wish for, but it was the best learning experience for me. I'm grateful for the childhood that wasn't the greatest because it taught me a lot, made me the person that I am. Started selling Cutco knives in people's houses when I was 15. by the time I was done 5 years, I left 5 years after being in the company for 5 years. I had trained over 2,000 sales reps on how to sell Cutco. So I went from being a rep to myself to actually going and becoming a trainer, having my own office at the company. Totaled about $5.6 million in Cutco sales. And then the thing that I loved about it was personal growth. It was driving, it was pushing, it was challenging, it was hard to do, but it was one of the best experiences of my life. And then left and went into the corporate world and was in the corporate world for 5 years and hated it because I was making a ton of money, which is, obviously I didn't hate that part, but I felt like I was, everybody in the corporate world is just slowly waiting to die is what it feels like. And that was a complete contrast from, what Cutco was, where it was just like everyone's positive, everyone's motivated, everyone wants to grow. And, it was easy for me to do well in the corporate world because nobody else is motivated. And what happened though is I lost my drive that I had when I was, a Cutco sales rep and manager, and losing that drive was one of the things that really made me feel like I was not progressing anymore. And then one day I was sitting in Jason's Deli, which is a food chain, and I was there with my girlfriend, and I just saw a bunch of people that looked like zombies all around me, and they were just fat people that looked depressed and were feeding crappy food to their kids, and they were shoveling crappy food in their mouths, and it was I don't even know what it was, but it was just like I got fed up, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to start a podcast. I learned a lot of stuff in Cutco that most people don't even know exists, of how to change your mind, how to change your future, how to do all of these things. And so I was like, I'm gonna learn about starting a podcast. And let me see, in about a week, it will be 1 year that it's been open and been running, and it's at about 1 million downloads in its first year. And it's just taking off because a lot of people have never really heard this type of stuff. They've heard very little on personal growth or self-development. They think that it's, it sounds like a weird thing. If from the outside looking in, it sounds weird. But then when you get in this circle of people who are motivated and developing themselves and working hard, you find that you can really change your life if you change your mind first. And people always try to fix their own problems by making the outside world better. We know so many people that are successful, super successful, but miserable. And the reason why is because they think that by making their outside world and mastering that, becoming number one in their field and buying all of these things and acquiring a lot of houses or money or women or whatever it might be is going to make them happy. But you can't change your outside world and expect your inside world to change. It doesn't work that way. And so what I've realized is you have to change your inside world, and your outside world will start to change as well. That's the only way it can be done. So it's my number one thing I'm focused on is personal growth. And that's, now I do group coaching and I do one-on-one coaching. And I honestly hate the phrase life coach and motivational speaker and all those things because I think they have a terrible connotation with them. And, I don't view myself as that. I just really want to help people the way that I was able to learn to help myself over the past 10 years, because I get into personal growth wanting to better myself and figure out why, I was troubled with all the things from my childhood. And so I just want to start teaching people the same thing that's worked for me.
Yeah, we're going to definitely get into some of that because I have my opinion on some of that as well. The life coaching and motivational speaking and all this type of stuff. I definitely want to get into that. But before we do, and I told you before the show, and Men of Abundance, just before Rob and I started talking, we were talking about following our list. And I have a list of things I have to do to make sure this show goes perfectly right. And one of them is to make sure I'm using the right mic and I have my headset in. And I just recently changed something in the show that those of you who have been listening from the beginning know that I'm wanting to start each show the way I start my day, which is with an attitude of gratitude. But I didn't follow my list, and I just went on what felt normal because that's what I've been doing over the last couple of weeks. And I failed to ask you, Rob, what are you grateful for today?
I'm grateful for the fact that I woke up. I think that most people, they look for something they have to be grateful for, and they feel like they have to have a great relationship, or they have to have a new house, or a materialistic thing. I was, and I use these words the correct way. This is the way I feel it. I was lucky enough to have my father pass away when I was younger. It's the worst thing that ever happened to me. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. But it made me realize, because he was the first person that I ever knew that passed away, it made me realize that death is a real thing. And I think most people live their lives as if they have this is a practice round and they get a second at bat. But I have the very visceral feeling that I'm going to die one day. And so the fact that I woke up today, something I started doing about 6 months ago was just practicing waking up and being excited for no reason, like just waking up and being excited. because we don't need a reason to be depressed, and people don't need a reason to be sad and to, just kind of slowly get through their day. So I don't think that I need a reason to be excited and happy and motivated every single day. So that's what I practice every morning. And, I practice gratitude. And every morning I wake up and I hear that alarm, and it went from, crap, another day, and waking up like most people do is just pulling myself out of bed, to when I hear my alarm, I never hit snooze. And I'm just excited the fact that I woke up today, because a lot of people did not wake up today.
Very good point. Very good point. It's something so simple as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to get into a little bit about what your podcast is about, because I listen to your podcast. There's few podcasts that I listen to on a regular basis simply because I don't have the time. So I'm very selective about where I spend my time. But I do listen to your podcast. It's one that stays on my list of episodes of podcasts that I listen to, and we'll get into that. But
awesome.
In the process of, and you mentioned some of it coming along, and your dad passing, how old were you when your dad passed?
I was 15.
Yeah, I was pretty young. I wasn't that young, but I was young when my father passed as well, and I was in another country at the time, so I had to get home. So I definitely sympathize with that. And so along the way, you've had some kick-in-the-gut moments, some other kick-in-the-gut moments. I'd like for you to share that with us and anywhere along your journey.
Yeah, so the easiest way, and I used to not be open about any of this stuff until about 5 or 6 years ago, because I felt that if I was vulnerable, that it would show that I was weak. But what I've come to realize is that vulnerability, if I'm vulnerable, people view it as a sign of strength and courageousness. And so what happened with me, just to kind of give you an idea, was my father was an alcoholic. My entire life, I don't have a memory of him not being an alcoholic. I honestly can't remember any of it. My parents got divorced when I was 9 or 10 years old. And then, he was in my life pretty frequently. He was in my life, but he was an alcoholic all the time. And then he passed away from liver failure when I was 15. And there was a lot of time that the whole time he was alive, and he'd show up to my baseball games when I was a little kid drunk, and take me to Boy Scouts, and he would be drunk on the Boy Scout trips. And I remember one time he was so drunk he couldn't even put the tent up, and I had to put the tent up while he laid down outside the tent. And I remember just being super embarrassed by the fact that he was alive, and I had to go through all of these things as a 8 or 9, 10-year-old boy. But what I've come to realize is I don't resent him anymore. There's actually no part of me at all that resents him or the path that he chose, because it made me who I am. And I think that's a very stereotypical way of saying it. But it's true, because, if I'm going to hate him for all of the things that he did, I'm also going to love him for the things that he did as well, which is instill drive in me. And the reason why I can wake up and work 12 or 15 hours a day trying to help other people is because I've suffered enough, I feel like, and I've figured out ways to get myself past suffering. And my drive is to get people past their suffering a lot quicker than I was able to. So to share tactics with them through my podcast or through my coaching or some sort of way is what I'm driven to do. And it's what makes me wake up every single morning and drives me. Like it literally is what puts me in a good mood and gives me energy every single day. So that's kind of my background. And if you want to dive into it, we definitely can. But, it was an alcoholic father and a mother who had to work 3 jobs and barely get by, that kind of, shaped my worldview and the way I see everything.
It's amazing listening to you say that, because that was my normal growing up. Yeah, that was my normal. And it was just normal to me for my dad to be drunk. I mean, he would wake up. I don't remember. My dad was never had a hangover, but he would wake up and grab a beer. Mm-hmm. It was just normal growing up. Yep. And I can definitely relate to that without a doubt. So what was the pivot point that kind of changed your course and get into what you're doing now?
So what happened was I didn't realize why I was so driven when I was a Cutco sales rep and a manager and all of these things. And I was so driven to the point where I had to be number one. I was okay working 110 hours a week if I needed to for a couple years. And then I got into the corporate world, and it was like I said, I was just fed up. And there was one point where, and this was November of last year, I was making, my base salary was over 6 figures plus commission on top of it. And I was making the most money I've ever made, working the least amount of hours that I've ever worked, but feeling the most unfulfilled that I've ever felt. I never had more money in my bank account. I had tons of money. I did everything that people would, I bought a new house, all of these things, everything that people would think that you would want, or what looks from the outside looking in like just an amazing life, and I was just on the right track. But there was no fulfillment. The money is just a hollow thing. There's no fulfillment in just acquiring digits in my bank account. And so I hit the point where it was just like, and I think it's the most beautiful thing, where someone hits a point where it's just enough is enough, and they're not going to take it anymore. I think it's the reason why we love movies like The Pursuit of Happiness, is because we can watch someone hit like their rock bottom. And we can see somebody who makes the decision that says, where I am right now is not acceptable anymore. This is not what my life is supposed to be. And within an instant, they make a change. They make a decision that changed their entire life. And that's what happened with me last November. I was like, I can't do this anymore. My company, I decided to split. And I was like, I'm going to go 100%. I still have other companies that I work, that I own as well. But my main thing is that I'm just trying to build my personal brand as large as I possibly can, just to affect as many people as possible. And none of it has ever been. I have zero, in my podcast is about to hit 1 million downloads in its first year. I have zero advertisers. It's never been about money. When I first started the podcast, people were like, well, how are you going to monetize it? And people always ask, how do you monetize and all these things? And I'm like, listen, that's never been a focus. My focus is just to try to end suffering as much as I possibly can. And so that was the moment where I just hit it. And I was like, well, at that point in time, I was 29 years old. And I was like, I'm 29. It's either I do it now or I never do it, I felt like. And I still have years where I can build up and become better. And I just hit a wall, and I was like, enough is enough. I'm done with this. I quit my job, and I didn't have a safety net at all. I have money in savings, which was great for me and all of these things, but it was just like, I didn't have a safety net, but I knew if I jumped, eventually some type of safety net would appear. And that's what's happened for me.
Yeah, and what you explain is exactly why you have 1 million downloads, because you have put, in my mind, and from what I get from that, you have put the people first. And what your mission is to help the people along the way. And you mentioned about, like, one of my favorite movies of all time is The Pursuit of Happiness. And I'm a sucker for any story like that. What do you say to the guy, and many of the people who are my audience, men of abundance, are people who are comfortable. And they're not necessarily down and out like Chris Gardner was at that time, depicted in the movie and in real life. And they're comfortable in their job, they're making good money, they're sustaining their lifestyle, but they just still feel like there's a little bit something more. Those people, it seems to me anyway, they're in a comfort level, and they're in the comfort zone, and they don't feel, either they feel they want to push forward, or they don't feel the need to really push forward until something tragic happens, like a layoff or something to that nature. How do you work with people like that?
Yeah, so I have a couple coaching clients that I have, one-on-one coaching clients that I have. One of them makes $275,000 a year, and he wants to make $500,000 a year, and he makes that much money working a couple days a week. I have another one that makes, he made $184,000 last year, and he wants to make $300,000 this year. And so it's people who, and that's actually one of the main challenges that I love the most, is that it's easy to motivate somebody who has nothing because they're trying to work their way up to at least have something. It's harder to motivate people who have a lot, and they have enough money in the bank account, and they have all of these things, and they're comfortable. That's harder to motivate somebody. And so my personal way of motivating people and actually getting them to change their mindset is that I say, imagine your life never being better than it is right now. Imagine that your greatest moment of your life, this is like the astronaut syndrome, where the astronauts, they go out into space and they look back at this little tiny dot that you see so many pictures of, and they hit like the ultimate part of human potential that you can get to, and then they come back to Earth, and a lot of them become alcoholics and drug addicts, and they go into depression, and a lot of them commit suicide and those types of things because they feel like they've gotten so far and that their best moments are behind them. And what I say to them is, I said, cool, you're making $200,000 a year, whatever it is. And it's what I always like to say is that money is just the monetary. What is it's the quantitative representation of how much you're growing and where you are. So that being said, you can make $200,000 a year. Cool. Like it's a number. I'm not impressed by how much money somebody makes, but if you're growing and continuing to get better, your bank account is going to show that. Your bank account will never outgrow your personal development account. And so how do you motivate somebody? It's at that point where everybody who's listening to this, the reason why you're listening to this is not because you feel like there's nothing more for you. The only reason why you listen to a podcast and this type of stuff is because you know deep down inside of you that there's something else that you haven't, there's potential that you haven't actualized on. And I think that the greatest tragedy in humans is not, the greatest tragedy is not all of the shootings that you see on TV, or it's not all of the terrorism, and it's not all of the crazy tsunamis that come through, or the hurricanes that destruct all these places. Those are all tragedies. But the greatest tragedy, in my personal opinion, is someone who has potential that they haven't lived up to. Like, unused potential is, in my personal opinion, the greatest tragedy in the world. And so people who are out there that are in their comfort zone have to realize that at the end of their life, they're going to get to it where they have the last couple days or the last week or whatever it is. And I don't want to be 90 years old sitting in my rocking chair and going, man, I wish I would have done more. I wish I would have become better. I wish I would have, seen what I really could have been. And for me, the pain of hard work is nothing compared to the pain of regret of getting to the end of my life. And that's my biggest fear, is getting to the end of my life and having some sort of regret. So in order to get out of your comfort zone, if you're in a comfort zone, you're making good money, you're getting by, all of these things, the way to do it is exactly the same way that they do in The Pursuit of Happiness. He hit rock bottom. So if you want to go further and push yourself more, where you are needs to mentally be rock bottom. Like, it needs to be absolutely unacceptable to be where you are anymore if you're trying to get better. If you made $50,000 this year and your goal is to make more and to get better, even though you got by and you're still alive with $50,000, if you make anywhere near the exact same amount of money that you did last year, it should be an absolutely holy crap moment. What am I doing with my life? Because once again, it's just numbers, but it's a quantitative representation of how much you're growing. And the only thing that really makes a human happy is progress in your relationships, progress in your family, your marriage, your business, your bank account, all of those things. And if your bank account is growing, it's showing that you're actually growing as well. And so if someone's in the position where they're listening and they're comfortable and they're sitting in the same spot year after year after year, because we all know someone who makes the same amount, they don't progress year over year over year, where you are needs to feel like rock bottom. Like, it needs to be a legitimate pain in your mind to still be in the exact same position when this year ends. And so you're not at rock bottom, but mentally you can make it feel like you're at rock bottom. And then you just hit that point where you make a decision, say enough is enough. I have so much more potential inside of me that is not being used, and I'm not going to get to the end of my life and regret and wish that I would have done more and wish that I would have helped more people or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I love that. And you said it right there at the end, is helping more people. Because when you talk about the greatest tragedy in human life is those that go to their grave and never see their full potential. In my mind, for me, that's because of all of the people that you could have touched and improved their lives along the way. You were just, to me personally, it's just selfishness. And I know that takes it a little bit too far in some people's mind, but that's my mentality. That's for me. With the information that I have and the connections that I have and the people that I can connect you to whoever, or, just connecting people in general, it's my responsibility to do that. And if I don't do that, then I'm being selfish. And I have that scarcity mindset, which is the opposite of what Men of Abundance is all about. And that's why I love having people on. People are like, well, why would you promote another podcast that's similar to yours? Well, because I'm an abundant leader. Nobody's going to take anything from me. I'm not trying to be better than Rob. I'm not trying to be better than John Lee Dumas. I'm not trying to be better than Pat Flynn. I'm trying to be different. I want to be me, and I want to be who I am. And the people that resonate with me will hang out with me, and the people that resonate with Rob will hang out with Rob. And so I don't worry about that. I let that go wherever it wants to go. But I feel great when I'm helping other people reach their full potential. And so let's talk about the motivation piece, because your podcast, MWF Motivation, Monday, Wednesday, Friday Motivation, so you know what MWF stands for, Men of Abundance. For me, I used to always be this thing, you got to motivate people. As a NCO, as a non-commissioned officer in the United States Army, we were always told, you got to motivate your soldiers, you got to motivate your troops. I said, I can't motivate anybody to do anything they don't want to do. But what I can do is show them a reason why they may want to take this route. Like you're doing. So I'd like to hear what your point is on that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that really drives me the crazy, my biggest fear is that I'm going to get to the end of my life and have unused potential. And so I remember I mean, it's if there's that stereotypical phrase of the thing that keeps me up at night, the thing that I think about more than anything else every single day is the fact that there's so many people that are so amazing, that are so talented, and they don't realize it, and they don't ever actualize on it. And it's like all of the world's problems could easily be fixed if people started actually just taking time and working towards themselves. Most people get in, like we were saying, that comfort zone where they just sit there and they find a place they're comfortable. And it's like Ben Franklin says, most people die by 25, but they're not buried until 75. They just find a comfort zone and they stay there. And that's really all that it is. And honestly, it's the hardest thing to say, but just I've come to realize that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I can teach somebody all of the things about how their mind works, like, because I'm not the person that's just like, hey, you can do it. I believe in you. Like that's not the type of person I am. I'm the person that wants to dive into your mind and what holds you back and figure out your paradigm, figure out your worldview, figure out how it's tinting what you see, and try to help you maximize your potential. But if someone, by me working through these things, it's going to do nothing unless someone wants to do the work themselves. And so, in all honesty, I wish there was a great answer for you. There's really not. Somebody has to want it themselves, and they have to have a strong enough why to get up off the couch. And the thing about it is, we live in a world of instant gratification. I remember when I was a kid, if we were sitting around and someone's like, man, I wonder how far, the Earth is from the moon. And then everyone would be a little kid and they're like, I don't know. And then we'd be like, all right, well, I guess we'll never know. Like that's the way the world used to be. We'd be like, well, maybe we could go to a library and try to figure it out and look at an encyclopedia. But that's it. You can't do that anymore. Like I could literally just talk to my phone right now, say, okay, Google, how far is the sun, or how far is the Earth from the moon? And it'll say 93 million miles, right? Like I can find this out instantly. So people are so used to instant gratification now. But that's not how success is made. You don't become successful by instant gratification. People say they're lazy. Oh, I can't do that because I'm lazy. Well, I think all humans are inherently lazy, because if you think about 20,000 years ago, it's really hot in Austin, Texas, where I live right now. Right now, you and I would be sitting in the shade doing nothing because it would be so freaking hot we wouldn't go out. The only time we'd go out and actually hunt or do whatever we needed to do or farm would be in the mornings and at the end of the day. And that was it. So humans are inherently lazy. So to say that I'm a lazy person is just saying, hey, I breathe like every other human. That's the way that I see it. If they say I procrastinate, well, of course you do. Everybody, that's natural, I believe, in people's minds. So that being said, if you really want to find a way to get up and be motivated, it's hard to if you're living in instant gratification. It's easier to sit down and eat bonbons and watch Netflix right now than it is to get off your butt and start working for something that might come in 10 years. So if somebody really wants to be successful, they need to take their mind out of instant gratification and realize that nothing great has ever been built overnight and, or a couple months. Some people build a business and they don't make money, or they lose money in the first couple months and they think, well, this isn't for me. Like it takes years sometimes to build a great business. And so if someone can learn to live in delayed gratification, if they find a why that's so strong that they can say, okay, yeah, I really want to do this because I want my family to be better in 15 years, or I want to be able to put my kids through college in 15 years, whatever it might be. And they can live in delayed gratification and suffer now. Well, then that's when they really start. It's the exact same thing of changing your life, where Muhammad Ali says, I hated every minute of training, but I told myself, suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion. Most people can't do that. They can't suffer in the moment in order to have delayed gratification years down the road. So that's the easiest thing, is that I can't make somebody want a better life, but I can help somebody if they're on the mission to trying to have a better life.
Yeah, and that's shown. It's proven time and time again with multiple courses, and this was one of the things that I had a problem with for quite a while, is that I was a course junkie. I would buy every course, and every course worked for many people, but it's just like a book. There's a statistic out there somewhere that says something like 90% of the books purchased aren't even read.
Yeah,
they're just purchased
crazy.
And put on the shelf. They're not even read. And it's the same with most courses. It's the same with people that start colleges. It's something like 45% drop out. Before they may go back later, but initial entry students into college will drop out. Have you ever seen the study? There was a study that I saw and I read about these. They had some toddlers in a room, and they put down some marshmallow treats in front of them. Yeah, and they said, okay, if you don't eat the marshmallow, when I come back in 15 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it was. It was probably 5, because 5 minutes to a child like that is like 2 hours.
Right.
And they said, if you don't eat the marshmallow, then I will give you 2 marshmallows.
Mm-hmm.
But few of the kids could wait. They wanted an instant gratification. They could not wait for the 2 marshmallows. Those that did, years later, now this study went on years, they went back and looked at these children as adults. And the children who practiced delayed gratification later on in their adult life were doing much better financially, relationship-wise, just in general in their entire life. Because they practiced delayed gratification, as opposed to the ones who were instant gratification, were broke, their relationships were broke, they were in dead-end jobs, or they weren't working at all, and they had no money in the bank, hadn't been to college, so on and so forth. So there is a lot to be said for practicing delayed gratification. And you're absolutely right. We have everything at our fingertips right now. If there's one thing we don't have a shortage of, it is information.
Yeah, that's true.
What we have a shortage of is action.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I actually saw this statistic not too long ago. It was actually a couple weeks ago, where they said that an average person spends $1,000 to $2,000 on an online course. 72% of them don't even open it up for the first 30 days. And that's crazy, because it just shows that people want instant gratification, and what they want is a temporarily to get away from from where they are now, the opportunity to possibly in the future have some type of success. But then when they figure out that they have to put work in, they change their mind, and they think that by just paying the money, their life is going to change. Their life isn't going to change by acquiring information, because we all know people who have degrees falling off the walls, but they can't be successful. They're all educated, but they can't figure out a way to be successful. So the reason why is because they have a paradigm that they can't fix, and they need to figure out what it is, and then also at the same time they need to put the work in, and hope that later on down the road they might get some success from it.
Yeah, and unfortunately there's a lot of how do I put this? I don't know if the word unscrupulous is right, but crooked marketers out there who take advantage of that psychology. And they say you can earn $1 million in 60 days sitting on the beach. Gary Vaynerchuk just posted a video about this today.
Yeah, I saw that.
You saw that? It was amazing, and I saved that one, and I'll be using that later. And he's spot on. Everybody says you're going to make millions of dollars sitting on the beach or while you're sleeping, and so on and so forth. And there's a very small percentage of people who are doing that. But even those that are doing that, it took them years to get to that point. It took them a lot of hard work. It took them a lot of personal development, a lot of putting systems in place, a lot of money in some cases to put systems like that in place. And you can create a passive income like Pat Flynn's passive income. You can create a passive income, but it still takes work. And as soon as, like you said, as soon as they're in 30 days and they're not making $1 million, and they haven't even done anything, then they're like, well, this doesn't work. Well, the same is true for college. When you get into college, and a lot of people quit right away because they feel that they're not doing well enough in it, or they don't see any return on it. And even after they do graduate, they don't see a return on it. But that's an acceptable strategy in our society today, as opposed to going out, hiring somebody, a mentor, somebody like yourself, who is where you want to be in life, doing the things you want to do in life, paying for their coaching and their time to learn exactly what you're doing and being mentored. To me personally, depending on where you want to go in life, if you want to be a doctor, Rob Dial's not going to be able to help you. Okay,
I
if you want to be an attorney,
right?
Because you need that education. I got that. But if you want to do what Rob is doing, Men of Abundance, and if you want to do what somebody else is doing, pay them for their time or work with them for free. Figure out a way to get their knowledge. And I personally think that's a better payoff than an MBA. That's just
absolutely.
And I've heard this from people who have MBAs. I have a bachelor's degree in business administration and considering getting my MBA for personal reasons, but I know people who have an MBA and people who don't, and even those that have an MBA and have their own business say nothing that I learned in my MBA helps me in my personal business. Maybe a few things, but on a grand scale, from the cost of it, not so much.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was lucky enough to it's odd to say this, but I was lucky enough to see, when I was a younger, 20, 22 years old, whatever it was, that, I realized that at the point of time that I was at in my life, where I was at in my life, that school is not going to serve me. And, it took me longer to go through school because I think I realized it, but never had the actual idea, hey, maybe I should drop out. And then I dropped out, and it was, for me personally, the best decision I've ever made. And, some people, they need school. I was the type of person where it didn't do anything for me and actually held me back. And so I ended up taking the money that I would have put into school and put it into myself in ways that I wanted to learn. And that's the thing that really, is where my life started to change when I said, well, I was going to put $10,000 into myself this, next 6 months, these couple semesters. Why don't I do that through going through courses? Or, my first mentor I hired, I paid $500 a month at 19 years old. So I paid more for my first mentor at 19 years old than I did for my actual rent of the place that I lived at. So I was lucky enough to understand that, or at least figure it out. I don't know if I had the foresight or if it was just kind of like a following my gut. And I personally believe that, and this isn't a pitch to hire me, because honestly, I'm pretty much at the point where I don't think anybody else can hire me, but because I have so many people that I am working with, but it's just the fact where I say somebody needs to figure out some sort of way to find a mentor in whatever it is. Because if they've been doing this thing for 10 or 20 years and you can pay them $500 or $1,000 a month to teach you all of the stuff that they've realized in the past 10 or 20 years, and it'll save you 10 or 20 years, it's 100% worth all of that. And they'll shorten your learning curve completely. So I completely agree with you on that.
Absolutely. So we're at the point now in the show, Rob, where we're going to pay it forward. You ready for that?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Hey, Men of Abundance, the difference between owning a job and owning a business is systems. And some of you know what I'm talking about. For those of you who want to own your own business or start some sort of a side hustle, I have something that I want you to take a very close look at that is built around systems. In fact, it's technology built around systems. And I'm very confident that this is something that you may be able to do while you're still doing your full-time job. And I kind of get the feeling that you might enjoy it as well. Hey, if not, no big deal. But I at least want you to take a close look at this. You can see what I'm talking about by going to the show notes of this show at menofabundance.com/023. Scroll down, click where it says HODO, H-O-D-O, click on that link and watch that video. And if that does get you excited at all, I don't want you to get caught up in the hype. I want to talk with you about it. I want to make sure that this is right for you and it's something that you truly feel that you can do as a side hustle. And then if you're ready to take the next step, I can get you into the system absolutely free for the next week so that you can take an inside look, see exactly what we're doing, and you will get to see firsthand how we are changing the face of business and the travel industry forever. So either go to the show notes of this show at menofabundance.com/023 or go to menofabundance.com, click on the resources tab, and scroll down to where it says HODO, H-O-D-O. Watch that video, and then let's talk. Now let's get back to the show. So give Men of Abundance 1 to 3 actionable steps that they can take today.
Number 1 is exactly what we did, wake up with appreciation. Number 2 is to find your why. Like why are you doing what you're doing? What's the reason why you're doing it? Because if you're just saying, hey, I want to make $100,000 this year, just like what most people say, it's going to be very easy to not be motivated in the moment. But you're saying, I want to make $100,000 this year because I want to put $20,000 into my son's college fund. That's going to give you much more motivation. So the second thing would be to do that, to find your why. And the third thing is that I would say is to start talking to yourself. And this is an odd thing to say, but everybody talks to themselves in their head. And a lot of people say really bad stuff to themselves. Their self-talk is just completely incorrect. I used to be the one that beat myself up all the time. And what I say is change the way you talk to yourself and talk to yourself in your head, and use 1 to 3 really empowering phrases that you say to yourself. And every time, I did this yesterday, I was walking through the airport. I gave a talk on Monday night, Tuesday yesterday when I was in the Atlanta airport. Tuesday I was on my way back to Austin. I was walking through the airport and realized that it's just a habit for me. I was saying empowering things over and over and over again with every single step that I had. And so I would say start talking to yourself and empowering yourself as you're doing things, and it'll completely change your life and your paradigm. Your world will start to, your outside world will start to match, and your results will start to match the way that you talk to yourself.
I do want to chime in on that right there, because talking to yourself does sound kind of weird when you put it in, when you say it out loud, and when you hear it from somebody else. I want you to talk to yourself, but you just explained what most people don't think about. They already talk to themselves, but they're saying the bad. They're looking in the mirror and saying, "I'm so fat," or I wished I could had done better on that project at work, or I know Jim is going to get the promotion instead of me because he's this and I'm not, and blah blah blah, and I'm not educated, whatever. You're already talking to yourself. Just change the change the dialect, change the words that you're using. Yeah.
What I always say is people get down on themselves and are trying to change this, but what you have to realize is, like, you can't get mad at yourself if you're not getting good at it. But you can't change your first thought, but you can always change your second thought. So if your first thought is negative, immediately change it to positive. And use them. If you have one negative thought, say 100 things, like say one phrase 100 times over and over and over again. That's more empowering than that negative thought, in order to make sure that you change what you're really thinking about.
Excellent. What daily habits make the biggest impact in your life, Rob?
What daily habits make the biggest impact in my life? The biggest thing that I think really helps me is that I've been doing the past 6 months, like I told you, is waking up and legitimately working with a morning routine every single morning. I have the exact same routine, but the very first thing that I start my day off with is just figuring out a way to be in like a great state from the very beginning, from when I first wake up, and be excited and be happy from the second I wake up. Not because our life is all habits, right? The very first and most important habit is to wake up happy and to wake up excited. And it's hard to do at first. Once you start doing it over and over and over again, you'll realize that it really starts your day off completely different, because people just think that waking up is waking up. Waking up a certain way is actually a habit. And so I make sure that from the very second I wake up, I switched my alarm clock from like the slow, loud, scary alarm that's like the crappy one that comes on my phone, to a song that makes me want to dance. And so I get up and I literally want to dance from the second I wake up. And it just has changed my whole worldview from the very second that I wake up.
That makes me laugh, actually, and I like that idea. It's wonderful. Because I don't know what it is. I always wake up with a song in my head. Usually, in most mornings, I wake up with a song in my head. And this morning I was singing it out loud. I love that. What book would you recommend to our Men of Abundant Leaders, and why?
The number one book that I recommend to everybody is Think and Grow Rich. And the reason why is because I really just honestly think that that's the best self-help book ever written. It was the one that really changed my life, because I realized that in order to be successful, it wasn't like just something that accidentally happened. It was something that if you do it and you work hard at it and you figure out what the steps are to be successful, anybody legitimately can become successful. And it's the truth. And even 100 years later, there's still the exact same, all of the words that are in that book are still true today, around 100 years later. So I love that book and I recommend it to everybody. And then the one thing is the one I recommend right after that one.
Yeah, I love both of those books. And the one thing is much more modern book. And I've read that book and I have it on audio. Same with Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich is a book you have to study. It's not a book, and it actually explains how to read the book at the beginning of the book. But it is a book to study, and I have that one, of course, in hard copy and in audio as well. And I do like to refer back to that one quite a bit. And I will have the links to those books in the show notes at menofabundance.com/023. So you can go there and check that out. So, yeah, you're going to be a Friday episode, so we are going to pay it forward. And Rob, what I do is at the end of the 12-month anniversary of Men of Abundance, what revenue that we do generate, if we do, because right now we are not, but what revenue we do generate, those that I afford the opportunity on Pay It Forward Friday to mention a charity, we'll be able to mention a charity that we would be able to give to on your behalf. Do you have one in mind?
I do. Actually, it's funny that you asked this question right after my last answer, because I work with Jay Papasan's charity, a charity that he's part of, which is Jay Papasan Wrote the One Thing. Yeah. Because he lives in Austin and I'm a part of it. And the charity is called Heroes for Children. And Heroes for Children is a charity that gives financial support to families of children who have cancer. And I'm part of their committee, and I've been to their events, and it's crazy. I mean, so they just give financial support to these people and how much it costs. I mean, there was one lady who was there and it cost her, she wanted to see her son in the hospital every single day and it cost her $17 a day just for parking. And it's like those types of crazy things. If you think about it, that's like $450, $500 that it's going to cost her just to go park her car. And so if you start thinking about those types of things, it really adds up and there's a bunch of little expenses. So Heroes for Children is the one that I support the most.
That sounds amazing. I knew about Jay Papasan, of course, because of his book, but I did not know he was doing that. Somebody I definitely want to get in touch with, absolutely. So what does living a life of abundance mean to you?
To not live in scarcity anymore. I lived my life in scarcity for a long time because I was really poor. And, there was times where my mom was, she told me last time I was home a couple of weeks ago, that when she was telling my aunt this, and I happened to be there and overhear it, but she was talking about how she got rejected for food stamps when I was a kid because of the fact that she had a car. And so what she did was she got a job at a grocery store because she found out that the grocery store, as food is about to expire, right before it expires, like the day of, they give out if people at the grocery store who work there want food, they give it to them. So that's how we were fed for a while. And so with that being said, obviously having these types of things and realizing how poor we were, I knew how poor we were when I was a kid. I wasn't a dumb kid. I had a scarcity mindset. And when I was able to fix my mindset from scarcity to abundance and realize that, there's a surplus of money in the world and there's a surplus of everything and love and happiness and abundance and oxygen and all of these things. And if you think of the world that way, what you'll start to do is you'll start to notice all of the abundant things that are around you. If you think in scarcity, you'll always notice how there's not enough of whatever it is. So my answer is very easy. The abundance thing that I will tell you is to stop thinking of scarcity. Stop saying that you're not enough. Stop saying that there's not enough money. Stop saying that there's not enough whatever it is, because there's more than enough out there for whatever it is that you want.
There truly is. There absolutely is. So we're going to close this up. And before we do, I'd like for you to leave us with a parting piece of guidance and any way that we can get in touch with you and anything that you're excited about and you're working on at this point.
Yeah. Well, I'm most excited about the fact that I leave for Italy for 2 weeks in a couple days. So that's what I'm most excited about right now.
What are you going to be doing in Italy? You just going on vacation?
Yeah, my girlfriend and I are traveling over there. She's never been. It'll be the third time that I've been there. 2 years ago, I took my mom over to Italy. So we're going to be going to travel around Italy. We're going to go to Paris real quick and then fly back a few days later and go back to Italy. And we'll be over there for a couple weeks. And so that's what I'm most excited about with that. Most excited about with my business is I'm starting to see changes in people's lives. And the thing that I'm really most excited about is the fact that I'm figuring out how to, as odd as it sounds, I'm figuring out and getting better at figuring people out. I think I've always been good at it, but I feel like I'm on a level that has really gotten deep in the past few months, and I'm starting to see a lot of changes in my group coaching and my one-on-one coaching, and that's what I'm most excited about right now. And the parting thought that I'll give to people is just simple. Like the thing that really helped me out the most was that realize that happiness is not a destination. I always thought that if I get to X amount of dollars in my bank account, or if I, get a girlfriend that I am in love with or long enough, I'm with her long enough that I'll be happy, or these types of things. And it was always like a destination that I had to hit. And then I realized that I'm a competitive person. So I'll never actually get to that destination because I always keep pushing myself. And, if you think of it that way, well, then your happiness is going to be like chasing the horizon. The closer you get to it, the further away it keeps moving away. And so what I've come to realize is that I'm happy by looking back in the rearview mirror and seeing how far I've come and seeing my progress every single day. And so what I would say for everybody there is stop looking ahead and trying to search for your happiness. Look behind you, realize how far you come, and find your happiness in how much you've progressed.
Beautiful. I love it. And how can we get a hold of you?
If however you listen to podcast, it's MWF Motivation. Like you said, it stands for Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because they're about 10 to 15 minute episodes, and it comes out Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So MWF Motivation. And then if anybody wants to reach out to me in any sort of way, any questions that maybe I said something where you're just like, I need to know more information on it. I send a lot of emails and message people back whenever I get a chance. It's just rob@mwfmotivation.com.
Outstanding. Awesome, Rob. I appreciate your time, man. And I know you're going to have an excellent time in Italy. I look forward to seeing those pictures. Do you Snapchat?
I do. Yep.
I'm gonna have to get
it's at Rob Dial. It's very easy. So if you want to find me, it's ROBDIAL.
I will definitely get on Snapchat and be watching you if you're chatting or snapping out there in Italy.
Oh yeah, I definitely will be.
Looking forward to that, man. Awesome. Have an awesome day. Be safe on your trip and have
Thank
fun.
you.
I appreciate all your abundance and everything that you shared with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother. This conversation with Rob was a great way to end another wonderful, abundant week, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please share this podcast and share Men of Abundance with all the men in your life. And go to iTunes or whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on. Subscribe, rate, and leave an awesome review so that we can get found in the search engines. That way more men can find us and benefit from all of these amazing men of abundance. Now go out and live your life of abundance and make sure to pay it forward. Have an awesome weekend. Aloha.
That's all for today, Abundance Leaders. For more about our guests and the powerful information we shared with you today, be sure to sign up for our mailing list at menofabundance.com. We appreciate your time and look forward to hanging out with you on our next episode. So until then, be sure to pay it forward and live your life of abundance.